And thereafter, see how it goes.
Sanjeev, you have any idea which PSU is going to be privatized?
Prabhu, as you just said, that the stock market is very hot. So I don't think we should be making it hotter by.
It doesn't make a difference to my life or maybe yours, because you are not into those who are interested. I'm just trying to ask, which PSU can give that kind of money. I'm just trying to get the idea of raising 12 lakh crore rupees. It has to come either through disinvest privatization, or I don't know from where demand generation, extra GST will generate, or hopefully they'll get more GST from 1 lakh 20 lakh crore to maybe 1 lakh 50,000 crore. Maybe that is possible. But I'm just, I mean, you guys must be knowing which is the PSU which is on the block.
So nobody knows, right? Because if we knew, then we should have also known this announcement would have been about all that stock.
Because LIC suddenly you find is spending a lot of money on advertising. IPO, they have mentioned the budget anyway. IPO will be there in the budget. That is. But again, I am saying that what kind of demand this budget will, infrastructure of what kind all of you are talking about? Can you pinpoint this is what the areas you need should be, have the infrastructure development where you can generate demand and put more money in the hands of what I call the vitamin M, which money is required in the hands of people, which think all of you, Vinu, you may be, or Chandraji, you tell me which kind of, what is the kind of infrastructure you're talking about?
So, I mean, you saw that in the budget, she very clearly spelled out a lot of infrastructure focus on both the rural as well as the highways, a huge focus on that, a huge focus on road building, and I think that's and it's happening at a where we see is in the manner in which, of course, it's happening. The number is we are building almost 40 kilometers. Per day of highways, which is a big improvement from where we were till today. So that itself is a big area for which brings in demand. And so at this juncture, most engines of the economy are, as all of us know, have been in a sort of a slowdown mode. So consumption demand, be it the private investments as well as exports, and the onus of the demand cycle really falls squarely on public investment at this point in time, and that's what the government really has really done. I would think that that's one area, which is the second thing that they have also talked about a lot is in terms of health infrastructure. When they talked about spending on health, and I see a lot of rural infrastructure building, both in terms of health infrastructure, as well as other social infrastructures that they have talked about creating in the rural side. That would be an important area to generate demand, and that also the rural sector would need to be nurtured. And I think that's something which is going to be very, very critical. I really see these two to be very big areas: infrastructure as well as this entire thing about the rural infrastructure, and all of this has a huge multiplier effect in generating demand for multiple other sectors. The construction sector itself has a phenomenal multiplier effect, as also is a second most important employment generating sector. So I see this.
You spoke about health sector, because if you take out 35,000 crore rupees provided for the vaccine and take out the water which is added into the health sector now, pani and whatnot, there's hardly any increase in the health sector infrastructure as against the last year, 4,000 crore rupees. That is because 35,000 rupees goes into because that is also little, they might add more. But health, what we are talking about, rural infrastructure, again, I'm coming back to, because it depends on how much rural infrastructure you create. Manrega, you have reduced the amount money from their hand, because a lot of money has been taken away from Manrega. And rural roads have been under construction, most of people are doing. So, but rural infrastructure, there is no specific information coming out. Yes, again, I'm going back to the intent direction of the budget is very well defined. But what is not defined is how it is going to be implemented. Performance of the government on various promises in the past has been very good. But when it comes to delivery on the infrastructure, 40 kilometers per day, yes, that's a record Nitin Gadkari has really done. He is on the highway himself every day. He is the highway minister, not only highway minister, he is the highway mentally the highway on the highway all the time. But question arises how to create demand, because as I coming back to the basic thing, my sociological background, because unless you reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. Because ultimately, upper middle class can't create excessive demand because they have more appetite for anything foreign rather than made in India is not happening. So how you create the indigenous demand by generating employment in lower income brackets? So you have got 56% of services sector, which employs less than 15% of the labor force. You have 60% agriculture, which gets only 15% of the national income. How these imbalances have to be corrected? Sanjeev?
Prabhu, we don't have to go too far behind. Look at the decade of the 2000s and what investment in infrastructure at that time, it was highways, airports, power generation, what that did overall for demand, even on the consumer demand, the same middle class that you're talking about spent handsomely for us to grow 9.5% for many years. It's really after that, the entire infrastructure continued investment is what got stuck, and that brought us down to this economic slowdown, and then the pandemic has hit us. So the answers are already there. We just and this does not require any rocket science. It's a question of doing the simple things. But to your point, of course, there has to be good execution. If there is no execution, then it's only a strategy and a plan on paper. But we believe that the government is intent on this execution. And what has changed compared to that decade is, if you see over the last 2 years, the overall rhetoric around the world, led by the US, on wanting an alternate manufacturing to China has become more and more loud. And this is not a short-term political ploy. It seems to be quite consistent, which means there is an opportunity for other countries. Of course, Southeast Asian countries are also there to stand up to it, but nobody has the manpower and the capacity that we do. And that's where we have seen the government with its PLI scheme announcements supporting exports. We've seen a number of these initiatives. But yes, this will be a multi-year effort, and it requires very strong execution. So let
So
us.
you think basically that there's a need for better execution this time if you have to get some kind of growth back on track.
Very clearly, because you've been the critic so far in this discussion, as you're supposed to in your role, asking most of your questions about, will the government be able to execute? Will they be able to divest? Will they be able to, actually get onto the not only the road but also the railway and spend that money productively in capex? So yes, it's all about execution now.
So since you asked me that, I have not asked this question, I'm asking you, will this government be able to execute as efficiently as you expect?
Ravi, I'm not in the government, but
No,
what
but
we
you have
see on the
experience, right?
internet, and if I see the recent action during the pandemic of how they've helped the economy recover through the significant fiscal stimulus that came at multiple times and all the other benefits as well, they have actually put their neck there on the line and executed. So I'm hopeful that they will.
You see, the topic for today is this budgeting for India's decade, because we all of us expect that India is going to lead the economy, world economy in the next one decade, not in terms of size of the market, but in terms of delivery system. We have better system in India, we have better execution, we have better decision-making processes, a strong government. So when you talk forward, because one of the problem of deficit financing will be inflationary deficit, which is fallout of any deficit financing. I'm not, are you watching some kind of a inflationary trend in the market already, as I have done it, Uday?
Uh, Prabhu, in one of the important points is when the government is going for a relatively higher deficit than what was envisaged. One of the most important things at that point of time is a very close coordination between the government and the Reserve Bank. So the fiscal policy and monetary policy have to work very closely together to ensure that while the transformation is underway, as the government starts borrowing higher, there is no crowding out for investment financing required by the private sector. We have the RBI policy on 5th of February, that is tomorrow. I think that'll be a very important aspect to watch about how the government and RBI are, while keeping the independence of monetary policy, but also looking at the national priorities of growth while looking at inflation, that balance is going to be crucial for fiscal and monetary to deliver a reasonable range-bound interest rate scenario. I don't say that interest rates have to be fixed at a price, but they have to be in reasonable range so that investment decisions taken by businesses are in a more stable interest rate environment and not subject to volatility. If that happens, infrastructure investment happens, real assets happen on the ground, then you've got an answer for inflation. But in the interim, government and RBI need to work very deftly.
No, Uday, you're right. In the beginning, also made a statement. Modi government has assured stability of policies now. If you go by this budget, and if this continues for the next 1 decade, I'm talking about decade-long perspective now. All of you have got it. You have got assurance that policy will be stable. There won't be changes, tinkering with the policy all the time. So it gives you much more leeway and long-term planning to invest in the future sector, whatever you want to do. Then I want to ask, giving this assurance that there won't be any changes in any kind of fiscal policy or monetary policies, except tinkering with some time. How much investment you see in your own area during the next 1 decade?
We see significant investment in our industry for 2 reasons. One is capacity expansion. Indian exports are growing, I think led by Bajaj, followed by TVS. And India is becoming competitive in exports. The changeover to the electric transportation era that will take place, we will be investing very heavily. So will others be doing the same thing, whether it's Bajaj or Hero. So I think you're going to see a lot of investment from the transport sector, both to meet the demand as well as to meet the requirements of sustainability. And I want to make one point. When you have infrastructure investment as the main deficit, you're going to have less inflation than in the previous years when they have had revenue deficits which go into consumption, then which go into inflation, which also go into buying more foreign goods, as you said. So revenue deficits have a serious evil effect, like eating too much sugar or carbohydrates. But capital investment is like eating dal.
Sanjeev, just tell us the next decade of your company, your area, how it is going to grow after the assurance of a stable policy at the level of the central government.
You know, Prabhu, in the last decade itself, across financial services companies, we have grown between 20 and 35% CAGR. Of course, we are larger today than what we were a decade ago. But with this kind of a stable, growth-oriented policy, I see no reason why we should not see strong double-digit growth continuing through the next decade.
Sanjeev, what is your point here on this? Your members, so many members you have got. How much extra investment do you expect in the total in the country as percentage of current investment, capital expenditure?
As you know, private investment has been muted. But what was one looking forward to in the budget was a sort of a stable sort of a taxation and a regime and a stable policy regime. Many of the sectors are looking up pretty strongly. There is good feedback coming from the construction sector, construction equipment sector, the mineral-based sector. There is a positive growth coming from the mineral-based sector. Pretty upbeat. The capital goods sector, the machine tool sector, they have been also very positive. The auto sector, generally has been pretty much all right, I would say. So there are many sectors which have been actually doing exceedingly well. So if you look at the results of some of the companies in the construction equipment sector, etc., they've really been booming. Actually, the reports are very, very strong, higher than what it was compared to 2019. Forget 2020. So there are sectors which are very strong now, with the stability in the budget in terms of both the direction of reforms, and if the interest rate remains stable, I would imagine that we would soon see capacity utilization going upwards of 75% very soon, and private sector would come back onto the table to invest.
You see, I'm coming to the last question. That's because vaccination is very important for reviving the economy, because attendance in the offices was 50%, 60%. I don't know what is the percentage of people coming to your workstation now. Uday, how many people are coming back to your companies?
So first of all, Prabhu, on the bank branches, it is an essential service. through the entire lockdown period, the bank branches were functional at 90% plus, and therefore the entire branch banking side is fully functional. At the formal offices, the attendance, that is the corporate offices and head offices, the attendance is still low. At an average, it's about 30 to 40% as things stand today.
Venu, your company, what is the percentage of total workforce which is
See,
coming?
we are basically a manufacturing company, and therefore we will be 100% of manufacturing people are on the floor since August. And now more and more engineers and design offices, people are coming back. Salespeople have been on the field. So more than 75% are actually coming to work. And this will, I think, with vaccination and confidence, improve to 100%. It'll never come back to fully 100 because we've all learned that you can work from home. Flexible working will be a way of life. Maybe it'll come back to 90 or 85. But I think offices will find that today we are able to give people greater freedom to work from home. And that is something that new that we have learned during this crisis.
Sanjeev, your business such where you require personal interaction with the people. So what is your experience till now? It is back to say 70%, 80%.
Again, Prabhu, in our case, as far as branches is concerned, insurance or NBFC, we would be 90% plus. As far as our other offices are concerned, one of the things we've very clearly learned is that certain roles can definitely be work from home. So I would say as of today, about 15 to 20% of those roles are at home, and of the remaining 80%, nearly 60-65% are at work. So, and we rotate. So people come a few days and then they work a day from home so that we keep enough distancing still in the office. But yeah, the work goes on at full speed.
You see, as far as COVID concerns, India is one of the countries which has handled very well because that is where we have come back to normalcy almost much faster and developing the vaccine also much faster. Janish, I would like to know because government has fixed some parameters. I know that how we'll get the vaccination first. But as the industry leaders, don't you think you would have also taken a lead of suggesting the government, okay, we at our own level vaccinate our own employees and put them back at confidence level because could have been done. I don't know. Any initiative the CII took to suggest to the government, okay, leave it to us to procure the vaccination and vaccinate our employees?
Yeah, I think at CII, we have created a task force under the leadership of Mr. Narendran, the president designate, who takes charge as president after my term. Therefore, in order to ensure continuity, we felt the best way is to have a full-fledged task force on the whole area of vaccination. It is closely interacting with government, including giving a number of recommendations of how distribution can be expedited. And I'll request my colleague Chandrajit, who's closely involved with this exercise, to give what are the specific steps as CII, which we are dialoguing with government. Chandrajit.
No, I'm asking individually because Uday Kotak as chairman and managing director.
My view is
government. I don't know the procedure. Therefore, I'm asking you that would have been faster because
my view is very clear. I think the government has followed a certain path of vaccination. First, the health workers, then the people above 50. I would really like to see this speed up even faster.
Yeah, Chandrajit, advise you.
Points. 2 points. One is the one which you actually mentioned. One of the recommendations of CII through this vaccine task force, which has in its membership a large number of different types of people. One is, of course, the vaccine manufacturers themselves. The healthcare providers are involved in it. The cold storage are involved in it. Dr. Guleria is co-chairing it. And we have been in discussion both with the government, with NITI Aayog, etc. One of the things that we have actually said that like the healthcare workers, etc., are extremely important and they should be vaccinated, of course, as a priority. But from the point of view of livelihood and to create livelihood, it is very important that even industrial workers, etc., they are also vaccinated with priority. So that is a very strong recommendation of CII. The second aspect is basically to see how private sector can come in. So the private sector with its competence to actually really take this government effort further to see a large number of the population are actually vaccinated. So we need to open this up to the private sector to partner with the government, and that's a very strong demand and a request that CII has. In fact, there is a letter and a note to this effect, which has gone from Uday, as the president of CII, to the Prime Minister of India. So that's a very important thing, and we are actually at this point in time extremely happy to see the phenomenal stress which you also mentioned in the budget which has been given to vaccination. And I think that is going to be one of the key areas. I mean, if we are going to spend 35,000 crores in the vaccine program, it is going to be one of those booster doses as one sees in many of the stress sectors, like if we see movement of people really coming back to the country.
You see, this recovery of the economy depends much more. You come out of the fear of COVID. That's what it is, because all of you as the industry has performed well. Exports have done very well in this country now. So what I'm trying to raise, the involvement of private sector in the distribution, vaccination of India is not visible at the moment, because you are, as Uday pointed, we will go by the government procedure. But government of Modi, particularly Prime Minister Modi, is open to more ideas and ideas. How to make it fast? Because we have the production capacity. That's not, we are suffering for a production capacity. We are only limited by the distribution capacity, vaccination capacity. The role of the private sector becomes much more important. Each employer has 1 lakh employees, 2 lakh employees. They can also be vaccinated at the same time if the supply is available. I'm not suggesting that you bypass the priority sector. That is the point I was trying to make there.
My point, Prabhu, is that if you look at supply, from what I understand from Serum Institute, they've got 50 million doses. Some of them expire somewhere around April, May. In fact, they are very keen to distribute the doses faster than the current pace. So supply is not an issue at this stage, at least.
So it's a distribution issue. That's why I'm saying private sector, you could have, for example, ordered 1 million doses for your employees.
Yeah.
Because there's a wastage also. If the average is 70% per day, it means 30% life of this vaccine is very limited. If you don't do the same day, it dies. So that's what I'm saying. Why don't you still get active as a private sector? Okay, give us permission to use our vaccine by ourselves and just vaccinate our employees who are willing to get vaccinated.
I think at CII, we have made recommendations for private sector to participate in the distribution. But I think the issue from the government point of view is that they want to ensure equitable distribution rather than preferences to A or B or C category. Other than health workers, when I mean A or B or C category, I mean large corporates getting a benefit versus the small scale sector. They want to ensure that the distribution is equitable. That's what the government seems to be focused on.
I'm not getting the nuance. I'm talking the health of India is much more important for better functioning or better delivery and better productivity of the private sector industry. As economics, they say, if other things remain the same, it means you don't disturb the equitable distribution and priority sector. If you have the supply there, because I see there's no shortage of supply in this country, only the machinery, they are activating most of them, which has been activated various places, is still 70% average all over India, which is improving every day. But it is in the interest of industry, because I'm a little surprised, because government should have involved. They are open to ideas, again I'm saying. So I'm making, as a newspaper journalist, that private sector should also be very active in demanding that, okay, we should also be involved as per the government guidelines to vaccinate our own employees.
So, Prabhu, we are fully supportive of this. We believe private sector getting more active in distribution is something we strongly recommend and support. And if that can be broader communicated with an eminent journalist and media platform like yours, that would certainly be something we would very much appreciate.
We are frontline workers, but we are not given priority anyway. Thank you very much for all of you joining here. I think it's going to be a very good decade of excellence and development. And I hope what you think, infrastructure development will happen and India will grow and become more international power than all of us think. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.